There's a new report out from the website Politifact on the accuracy of the claims made by the major media networks, and the results are perhaps unsurprising. Now, before I give you the results, keep in mind that Politifact, in my opinion, is a little annoying, and they're massively frustrating. And I say that because I've explained in the past on my show how they really bend over backwards and stretch arguments to be overly charitable to the right. And I think if they did a better job, they'd be more literal in the way that they go about fact-checking. So as it stands right now, if anything, they have a slight bias in favor of conservatives and against liberals. And just to give one example of this, I remember they got into a back and forth with Rachel Maddow, and Rachel Maddow was totally right. And PolitiFact was like, no, but if you look at the Republican comments and you break it down by interpreting it this way and that way, then maybe what they're saying is half true, kind of, maybe. So again, and I think they do that to try to harp away on the idea that we are nonpartisan and we are objective. So they buy into the neutrality bias a little bit, where they try to fact-check Democrats and Republicans the same amount and give them both the same amount of trues and falses, because if they don't, then you're going to have conservatives say, they're biased in a liberal direction. So again, they bend over backwards to be kind to Republicans. But with that being said, here are the Fox News numbers. Take a look. So for true comments, it's just 10% of the stuff they say, which is hilarious. Mostly true is 11%. Half true is 18%. Mostly false is 21%. False is 31%. That's the biggest category. And pants on fire is 9%. So overall, 39% of the comments on Fox have some element of truth, and 61% are mostly false or worse. Think about that, man. 61% of the time, and again, in my opinion, according to a kind interpretation, 61% of the time, what they're saying on Fox News is false. Flat out false. So this really sheds light on the study that came out a few years ago, which said that people who watch no news know more about the world than people who watch Fox News. The propaganda and the indoctrination and the falsehoods make it so that you know less than somebody who knows nothing and is just giving their opinions about how the world functions. I think that says a lot right there. Now let's move on and take a look at MSNBC. For MSNBC, 9% of the comments are true, 24% are mostly true, 22% are half true, 22% mostly false, 18% false, and 4% pants on fire. So for MSNBC, it's 44% mostly false or worse. Now, that's definitely still not good, but again, I go back to the point that they really bend over backwards to try to be neutral and bipartisan, and they care more about neutrality than objectivity. But even with that being the case, 44% of the time MSNBC says false things, and Fox is 61% of the time. Now, finally, let's take a look at CNN here. CNN was the best out of all of them. 15% of the stuff they say is true, 42% is mostly true, 23% is half true, 6% is mostly false, 11% is false, and 4% is pants on fire. So about 80% of what they say on CNN is true. So they do a much better job than everybody else. But I also must say that, look, a lot of the problem with CNN is not that they're doing as much outright propaganda as a place like Fox News. It's that they just have a lot of goofiness at their network. Like Don Lemon, for example. You can't really fact-check asking a human rights lawyer if he supports ISIS, but it's a stupid thing to ask. You can't really fact-check somebody pontificating about, black holes might swallow planes, no. Can't really fact-check it, but it's still a stupid thing to say nonetheless. So overall, what's the takeaway from this, man? The takeaway is, even with the PolitiFact bias towards neutrality, which also feeds into why 80% of the stuff that they looked at on CNN is true, right? So they're biased towards the other network that's biased towards neutrality, which makes perfect sense. But even with that, you still get this picture that it's unavoidable. You must conclude by any way of looking at the data that Fox News flat out tells falsehoods or lies or misleads much more often. And of course, that also extends to the different wings of the political spectrum, because previous studies of PolitiFact as well have shown that Democratic politicians, simply put, they lie less than Republican politicians. So welcome to the University of Duh, but I felt like sharing it with you anyway.